Welcome to the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
Hey guys, Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts and entrepreneurs in the e-commerce industry, and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes in growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Chronos.agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand that is ready to scale and to double your customer lifetime value through retention marketing, Chronos is your company. We've helped hundreds of brands scale profits with email, SMS, and mobile push, while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, Elias Skin, Daudi, and many more. And the next step is to email us at sales@chronos.agency, or you can go to chronos.agency to learn more. Now, today's guest is someone with an incredible set of skills and experiences. I'm super excited to have him on. Andrew Sabbatino. Andrew, did I get your last name right?
You did. Thank you, Josh.
Perfect. Now, Andrew runs a couple of things, and he's got a long history in the e-commerce world, starting at age 11 when he first started selling physical products. We'll talk about that when we get started. But today, he runs a business building funnels for creators, and he heads up the email and SMS division for an amazing mastermind called the PowerHouse Mastermind, alongside Josh from Snow Teeth Whitening and Loss. And we'll talk a little bit about that experience as well. And before that, Andrew was the COO, and I guess you basically led the team from where was the revenue at with Safe Life Defense when you first started out, Andrew, and you took that business from where you started to 50 million in revenue a year in just 5 years' time. That's not a long amount of time in most businesses, but in e-commerce, that can be a long time. So tell us a little bit about, let's start there. 50 million a year in revenue. That's a feat that not many e-commerce entrepreneurs can claim. What was that like over the past 5 years?
Yeah. So, when that business started out, my friend Nick actually started that business, and he had started in a garage. He had no experience in e-commerce. He had just kind of seen some of my successes before with Amazon FBA, and he kind of started getting interested in it. He was running like a service-based industry here in Las Vegas, doing stuff with like clubs, doing like club promotions and stuff. So he had started the company, and I came in maybe a couple months after it had started and started helping out there. And basically, it was started in a garage. We had this like little crappy office that we got. It was like $800 a month or something like that. This tiny little warehouse. Like the air conditioning didn't work well. And from that little office, that business is now in a 139,000 square foot building.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now, Safe Life Defense, for people listening, sells body armors and tactical gear. I'm definitely not familiar in that space, and I never thought that this was a sector in the industry that could go direct to consumer. Tell me a little bit about the business model and why that works in the first place.
Yeah, so I didn't know much about that industry or really anything at all when we got started, and neither did Dick, really. He just started researching it on his own, and he was really good at product development. That was his skill set. That's why the company was able to like release such cool products, and we were able to like kind of grow at such a massive scale on that end because we had good innovative products.
Yep.
But it's direct to consumer because there's a lot of underserved pieces of that market. Most people would think that like a police officer is going to be given their armor, like their bulletproof vest, and most of the time that's actually not the case. They have to purchase it themselves. And then there's all kinds of other subsectors like security, EMS, firefighters, and other people that do want armor or have to have it for their job that their companies don't provide it for them. So we actually were like one of the first brands to go like direct to consumer on Facebook with that. On the only like one other brand, AR500, which has also been super successful. They just sell a different type of armor.
That's incredible. So you're not selling to civilians. you're mostly selling to professionals, people who actually need it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, you're selling a preventative. It's a cool preventative, which makes it a little easier. But a lot of people do just need it for their job. Obviously, you have those like prepper types or people that just want it, that buy it. But like I would say, like 80 or 90% of the people that purchase it actually need it on a day-to-day basis for their work.
How do you deal with the liability of the product? Obviously, if it fails, you only know that it failed after the fact, but is there insurance involved? What does that look like?
Yeah, you need it's a hefty insurance policy. I mean, at least down the line, I don't remember what exactly we started with, but I mean, I think we had some crazy huge policy by the time I left, like upwards of like close to like $20 million or something like that.
It's insane.
The liability insurance is interesting on that brand. Obviously, like the product works. It goes through testing all the times at like an NIJ certified lab, which is the like standard for testing of that type of product. And the company itself has actually had a couple saves as well, like people who've actually been shot on like while wearing it, and it saved their life. So yeah, those are pretty cool stories. That was like, you know, the reason that you get into the industry.
Right. We're gonna move back a little bit in your story here. You started out when you're 11 selling physical products. What did you sell, and how did that happen? Was it like in person or online?
Yeah, so I online was tough, right? Like, so I'm 32 years old. So at that state of the age, I would have been 11. So like the internet was still in its infancy. So I didn't know how to make a website or anything like that back then, nor did I really have any products I could have sold on a website at that time. But I needed money. I wanted things, right? I've always wanted to have stuff and been able to spend my own money. So I used like the tools that I had at hand, and I started making these like craft arrows basically, and I would consign them to the gift shops. And I was lucky because I lived in a kind of touristy area near a national park. And so I was able to like maybe make like, you know, $500 or $600 a month doing that. And I would just consign them with all the gift shops.
It's crazy. At 11 years old.
The story helped, obviously, because it was like, you know, a little kid trying to make some money. So I'm sure people bought a lot of times out of like, you know, like, oh, that's cool.
That's interesting. Andrew, how did that happen? I don't think, well, most 11 years old wouldn't really think all that much about making money, let alone selling products. What gave you the inspiration versus something a little bit more typical, like say mowing the lawn or doing chores?
Well, I couldn't get a job at that age, right? And I just knew I wanted some more money and wanted things. And my family is all pretty much entrepreneurs on my dad's side. Like my grandfather's 80, I want to say he's 89 years old. He's still working and running like a multi-million-dollar business. So he's taken a few steps back. My dad runs a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but he's still, you know, in the office quite often. It's
incredible. What kind of industry are they in?
That's a aerospace like defense company. So they do electrical systems on naval ships. So it's a pretty cool business. Great profit margins because all government contracts.
Right. Very specific. And so from consigning products into gift shops, selling physical products to eBay was when that next leap happened. Was that your first taste of online money?
Yeah, I think I'd probably sold a couple things on eBay, like my own things, like when I was in high school. But I worked at a restaurant at the time, and it was seasonal. And I went to college, so like basically like half my college time, I didn't have a job, and you can't collect unemployment when you're in school. So I was like, well, I need to make money somehow. So we started buying things from China and just listing them on eBay. And at one point, I think I had maybe like 25 different eBay stores running.
20. How does that work? So here's my story. I started out on eBay. I was alone. I was in school. Lots of free time. Came across a course on udemy.com and found out about eBay and what the whole deal was. And I was like, this cannot be true. So I gave it a shot, made a bit of money. I was like, that's cool. That's about it. I made about $1,000. That was the most money I've ever seen in my life at a point in time. And I thought that was it. But the more conversations I've come to have, the more I realize that people who are crushing it on eBay have crushed it on eBay. And that's like a whole new world that I never got to taste when I was in that space. What was that like, from going from just testing things out on eBay to scaling that to 20 plus eBay storefronts?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, right?
And you were in college at the time.
Yeah, and then like right after college too, for like 2 years I did it after that.
Okay.
The problem, I mean, like problem with like that, what I was selling and stuff, maybe like some of it probably shouldn't have been sold, let's just say, right?
Okay.
Buying things from China, and there was certain restrictions on eBay, obviously, right? About how much of each item you could sell and things like that. So the reason we had so many stores is that we were like trying to keep the levels down on each one that we were selling. So we had like eBay stealth accounts, basically they were called. Mm-hmm. And then so we had like 25 different bank accounts. It was kind of like a crazy scheme. I used to do a little bit of like more like gray hat, black hat stuff in my past. Right. So that was kind of like definitely more on the little bit black hat side.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And one of the things that I have kind of come to realize, and I think it's a great segue into what you do today, is that a really big reason why I was never really massively successful. I consider myself relatively successful in the fact that I actually made money and I didn't lose money on eBay, but I was never really a massive success. Was because I kind of kept to myself, and I never really had a community of people that I could rely on and trust and learn from, and I was kind of just stuck to my own ways and going through that whole cycle. Well, it wasn't a long time. It was just about a month or two. But I felt that I really needed people that I could talk to, network with, and connect with, to learn from and share experiences. And that was a really big learning for me when I shut down the store and moved on to my next thing. And today, you head up one of the divisions at PowerHouse Mastermind. And I personally think that's an incredible opportunity for entrepreneurs in the e-commerce sector, in the internet sector, looking to scale, find a community, find a group of people that they can trust and learn really quickly from, and obviously skip steps and scale faster than they could alone. What is PowerHouse Mastermind, and how does one get involved?
Yeah, well, I'm going to actually preface this with, me and Josh actually met at an event, right? So he's definitely come out of his shell there a bit on not having a community. He comes to masterminds and events now. So actually met at a networking event, big giant agency event. So and PowerHouse Mastermind is actually a e-commerce focused mastermind. We have about 135 members right now, and we're approaching over $1 billion in sales inside between all of the brands that are actually in the membership right now. So we do 4 events a year. It's a great place to like learn. Basically, you can help people that are below you, depending on where you are as an e-commerce owner, and you can learn from people who've been where you want to go.
And you've got some big names. Los, obviously, one of the he runs one of the fastest growing agencies, highly sought after speaker, consultant in some shape and form. And Josh, obviously, who runs Snow, grew the business from basically nothing to 100 million in sales in the first 3-4 years.
Yeah, I think they're at 150 now.
Insane, incredible. I read somewhere that they're one of the top 50, top 30 most visited Shopify stores in the world.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there might be one of like the only bootstrapped companies still. Like they don't have any venture capital or outside money in their company, as far as I know.
And so, that's like, incredible.
They're competing with, like Smile Direct Club and like companies like that are like huge and venture backed, and they're still winning.
Is that so? Talk to me about the community that you have in PowerHouse. Are people generally bootstrapped? Do you have venture-backed businesses in the crowd as well? What does that look like?
There's a couple venture-backed businesses, I would say, but the majority of the people that you're going to encounter are going to be like you're kind of like solopreneur or someone who has maybe like 5 to 10 employees. And they're just like growing their e-commerce business, right? They've probably been in business like 3 to 4 years most of the time. Everyone that's in our group is doing at least $1 million a year. And I want to say the average person is like doing around like 5 to 6 now when you actually average them out. So they're all like a good spot, and they're all really like ready to scale. So that's like when I was in that spot in the business, that's like one of the toughest places to be, because like you're right in between being able to hire top talent and like having the money to hire top talent and really scale up. So like you're kind of like still in the mix of your business. Like you're not really working on the business, you're still working in the business. So like that's one of the biggest things that I think people can learn, like being in the mastermind, is just like kind of how to scale their business and get to that next level. Because there's a big difference between like a 7-figure brand and an 8-figure brand.
Huge. Sometimes it's just about knowing what questions to ask and knowing what you don't know. I can relate to that awkward middle where you're not exactly big enough where really high quality talent A players would want to work with you, but you're not that small where you can get everything done yourself with a tiny ass team. What are some of the most common problems and questions that you see people in the 7-figure range trying to get to 8 figures face?
Yeah, a lot of them are going to be like operations wise. Social is always going to be a question, but I think like the biggest thing that we help people with a lot of times is operations, right? Like knowing like who that next hire should be, and like how to actually utilize the people that you currently have. I've also seen like a lot of questions about social media, right? And leveraging influencers. Obviously, Josh built his brand off the back of influencers, so that question comes up all the time as well. And we have some pretty cool systems in place for that. We also have like all the contracts and stuff already pre-made that we can just give our members so that they can go out and get their own influencers.
First of all, that's a big time saver. But second, with what's happening in the social space, paid social, what do you see as the next possible evolution in e-commerce? We've gone from just many years back, launching an ad on Facebook and switching things on means that you're making money.
Yep.
And that's the golden era of drop shipping. Yep. And then that died, and we've kind of evolved into the kind of niche world of dropshipping and single product pages, and then now that's evolved beyond that, and now it's becoming extremely difficult and competitive to win on Facebook alone. What do you think is the next evolution of that space?
Obviously, TikTok is going to be the next big advertising platform. It already is becoming that way. So like the more and more you know about that platform, it still has great organic reach too. They haven't limited it as much as like, an Instagram or a Facebook. It's still kind of like the wild west, like how we were back in like 2016. So I think that's like a great place to start if you're just running ads. But having a community now is super important. And having email and SMS is extremely important. Like starting from the beginning, having email and SMS. Obviously, you guys know you run an email and SMS agency. I run an email and SMS agency. We know how much more value that can bring into the back end. You can turn an unprofitable ad into a profitable ad just by having the proper back end set up.
Absolutely. What's your favorite story in that regard with if any, with email and SMS turning a business that maybe losing money into something that's profitable?
I'll tell 2 stories, right? I'll tell the story of our brand back this was quite a while ago, probably like 2019 or
I think it was not too long ago. 3 years, 2 years ago. Yeah.
That business scaled like crazy from like 2020 to 2021 and the end of 2019. Some of that had to do with the social political climate, obviously, but a lot of it was just some of the stuff that we implemented. But I think it was August of 2019, we finally like really went all in on email and SMS. We were using Attentive and Klaviyo at the time. Yep. And we took that brand from like $800,000 a month at the time to like 1.4 in 1 month. So we almost doubled our revenue just by implementing email and SMS. So, and then there you go. We have another member in our, he's actually in our mastermind, great guy. He kind of has a niche store. He sells like Western welding shirts. And he's got a great business. super passionate customers, but he wasn't doing any email or SMS. And he's been working with us now for over a year. And now 50% of his revenue comes from email and SMS.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
he's like our biggest success story for sure. Like he's killing it. Like just from when I met him, like maybe like a year and a half ago to now, he's like, I think like maybe 4 or 5x his store.
I love that. And what people don't realize is that it's not 50% of 1 month's revenue. It's compounding because you're using that extra profit to generate more revenue through ads and through acquisition channels. And you're kind of cycling that through. And 50% of 800K may just be 400K. It's still a lot of money. But 50% of 2 million, it's an additional million every single month. So that compounds. And you get to grow your business at a much faster rate than you otherwise would. Now, what does that look like for a business like Safe Life Defense? Because I would imagine that you typically would just need one vest, one body armor, and you're set. And it's not cheap. Your average order value is going to be like a couple $100.
Yeah, it was like,
close to 1,000.
It's somewhere in between, right? I can't give exact numbers because of NDAs and things like that.
Course,
but it's a pretty high AOV compared to like your average e-commerce store. Like your average e-commerce store is maybe doing like 100 something. It's significantly higher than that. So
where does email and SMS play a part in that space? Because typically people think about, all right, email and SMS, those are retention channels, and those are channels to get people to buy again.
Yep. So like, I mean, if you read, what is it? Is it 0 to 1 or, I forget what the book is called. It's a Michael Mastermind book, the guy from Agora. He basically talks about like the ascension levels, right? And like the first to million is usually like you have one product. And then from like the first like 1 to 10 and like X, it's usually like you create more products to create more money, right? So like, like you use like Intel as an example. First, like, they start out with like processors and they've expanded into other things. And basically what we did is we would create like accessories and things like that for our products. So although they only need one vest, maybe they want a different carrier, or they want to get like a belt with it, or they want to get like a mag holder, things like that. It's just expanding out your product lines. So typically, yes, like they only need a vest every 5 years because that's when they expire. But that customer's passionate about other things, right? Like your avatar is not just going to be passionate about whatever that one product is you sell. So if you're not producing the other products for them right now, like go out and get an affiliate deal for them so that you can at least sell them to them.
I love that. What are some resources that you recommend people look into for finding good affiliate offers to promote?
It totally depends on like what you're selling, right? Every niche is different, like health and like tactical and stuff like that. They have great like affiliate networks out there that are like tried and true established affiliate networks. But Shopify has that tool now. Is it called Caro, I believe? Or there's a tool now that lets you sell other people's products on your actual Shopify store.
Oh, that's interesting. Shopify Caro. Let me just pull it up. Cross-store partnerships. Caro. Yeah, you're right. It's Get Caro with 2 R's.
Yep. So that tool's awesome, right? I don't know a ton about Shopify because we were never on Shopify just because the niche is a little weird with them because like it can get associated with guns. We never wanted to take that risk. But yeah, it's a pretty cool tool, right? So you can actually sell other people's products right on your store. So like you can have a subsection of like other people's, and then they offer you whatever they offer you as like an affiliate program.
Right. This is fantastic. It's an up and coming space called, I think they call it collaborative commerce or something along those lines, where it's effectively affiliate marketing. But what this does, and I'm going to touch a little bit on this because this is really interesting to me. One of the biggest challenges with cross promoting products is that because it doesn't live on your store, you're effectively directing traffic and your audience to a target that you have no control over. Yeah. And a branding that's obviously may not be coherent with yours. And that might change as well. But now if you're able to house that on your storefront and have control over the conversations that you want to have with email and SMS as well. You have complete control over the relationship from start to finish, which is really powerful. And from a technical point of view, with Klaviyo specifically, they're not big fans of affiliate marketing.
No, you can't do any on there actually.
Exactly. So that's a big sticking point with Klaviyo for people thinking about, all right, I want to run an affiliate offer through Klaviyo. That's how you get warnings and bans, and it's a whole nightmare. We've had so many conversations with our Klaviyo rep with new prospects coming to us and saying, hey, I run a $10 million a year business and now I got banned on Klaviyo and my revenue fell by 20%. Like, all right, let me see what I can do. And it's always about either selling something that's not on your storefront or deliverability problems. It's typically one of these two things, and often it's related in some shape or form. What are some other ideas that you've come across recently that wowed you or made a big impact in the brands that you worked with?
Yeah, kind of like acquisitions, right? That's the one thing that no one ever really thinks about right now in this e-commerce space, because we're all entrepreneurs. We all want to like build, we want to start, we want to like start from the ground up, even if it's like a brand new product, like we want to do all that stuff. But sometimes it might be cheaper just to acquire someone else and then acquire all those assets that they might have too, right? So you might get a hold of all of their, email list, their whole SMS subscriber list, and then all their products as well. And they've done all like the dirty work and the legwork for you, knowing what works, what doesn't work. And you're a lot of times able to save so much time. So if your company's like, generating a decent amount of money, you're better off just going out and buying. And then most of the time you can just do a down payment and then do seller financing. So like you're not paying fully for the price of the company. Because there's a lot of people in the space, right? They just get burned out and they want to get out, right?
Yeah.
Like your typical like regular, maybe like a 7-figure brand doing like $1 million a year. Like their EBITDA is not going to be like that crazy in most cases, like maybe like 20% or something like that. Yeah. Maybe they're making like $200K a year. So like they basically like traded a job for a job in most cases because it's a one-man show. So a lot of times you can go in and like scoop that up on a seller finance deal and then add it right into your brand.
What are some typical KPIs or success metrics that you look at before making that decision around, all right, this is a business that I could potentially acquire? So I haven't done a ton of acquiring. I just know people that do them. So I don't want to speak too much about this because I'm not the expert. Obviously, there's better people at this, like, Eddie Malouf, Tommy Patterson, people like that. They're like really going out and acquiring tons of brands. Shout out to Eddie. Had him on the show.
Yeah,
awesome
dude.
He's
a great guy. We run with the same circles. I think we know all the same people, basically.
Absolutely. And we met at Eddie's event as well.
Yep. So the Agency Founders. That was a great event. So I would say like you're really just wanting to look at like kind of like I like to look at like the lifetime value most of the time of brands. That's like the big metric that I care about in like any brand that we work with, is making sure that like you have customers that are coming back and buying from you. Because it's just going to get more and more expensive to keep acquiring customers. Like Facebook ads are not going to get cheaper. TikTok's going to get more expensive. Google ads are going to get more expensive. So like the more retention that you can have inside your brand, the better. Because like we're probably going to get to the point where I know a lot of brands are already doing this, but like we're going to have to run negative on the front and like really know your numbers and be able to make it up on the back end.
Now, here's one thing that comes to mind. We work with a lot of businesses that are just at the stage where they start thinking about. We talked about the going from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, building new products and introducing new products and solutions to their customers, and that's a difficult leap because you've been successful with one product and you've been profitable and doing really well, making good money. Now, what's the next step like when you go from one product to multiple products that you can build lifetime value around? What's the typical process that you've gone through with your previous company or with brands that you've worked with that's worked out well for you?
So here's how I would do it. we would start with like an ask funnel or an ask campaign, right?
Okay.
Email and SMS. And like kind of like try to figure out, like maybe narrow it down to like some multiple choice of like some new products you're thinking about launching and kind of get a vote on it and see what people would actually want to buy first, right? Just because they say they're going to buy it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy it. It's a lot easier to just click and say, hey, like I'm voting on this and I want this. It depends, like obviously when the money comes down to it. So then the next step that I like to do is do a pre-release. Where you're actually going to take like deposits on the actual product before you even produce it. And if it doesn't, like if you figure out like, oh, like maybe 10 people only want this thing, then you can just refund them. And you didn't go through all the process of creating this crazy product and buying all this inventory without knowing it's going to sell. We've never had that happen with any of our products. Obviously, they all usually sell out. But that's a way to test it. And then after that, it just becomes like a normal product for you. And you've basically made up the cost on the front with the deposits to afford to manufacture it. So it's not any money out of your pocket.
That is fantastic. And you're giving people a great deal for doing that. And you're validating the idea before spending any money on it. That's fantastic. That's a good, I'm a big fan of that. The lean method of doing that. What are some pitfalls that you see? Because building new products, it's one thing to go with your existing customers and going through the email and SMS list and kind of going through that process, but acquiring new customers and then expanding on those customer lifetime values, that's going to be a different game altogether. Now, what are some common pitfalls that you've seen in the process of going from 1 mil to 10 mil in annual revenue?
Other than like the operational stuff, like if we're just going to strictly talk products, I've never run a brand that wasn't like niched down enough that the avatar wasn't generally somewhat the same, right? So like the results that we would get from like our email and SMS and all those type of campaigns would be across the board once you start running advertising as well. So if you're running like a general store, I really wouldn't know how to do that. I don't even recommend doing that anymore in this day and age, just because it's so broad, right? Like you're basically just a commodity product at that point, and you're competing with like the likes of Amazon at that point, which just, you're not going to win. You can't ship. Like I could order Amazon right now and probably get it here in like 2 hours. No regular e-commerce brand can compete with that. So
that makes sense. Now let's talk a little bit about your work with Luxvoni.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
I'm wearing the hat right now.
Perfect. Now, this is your business, and you build funnels for creators. And you worked with some really big names, really amazing people. Jordan Belfort is a client of yours, but Brad Leia as well. Now, tell me a little bit about the ideas between that and what you do at PowerHouse and what you've done with Safe Life Defense. How does that all interlink? I know it's all marketing, sure, but it seems like they're in relatively different worlds.
Definitely right. The marketing stuff helps, right? When like you're selling an agency, and granted, like I've never run an agency before this one, and so I'm still kind of learning like how to run an agency. I've always run e-commerce brands, so I'm still getting the hang of running the agency stuff. We're doing a really good job fulfilling. Obviously, we don't have as many clients as you guys do right now. I know you guys are crushing it, but
thank you.
It's a very interesting game, right? And funnels come into that whole thing, right? Even in e-commerce brands now, a lot of people are running funnels to try to increase their AOV on the front end so that they can actually run profitable ads. Because if you're selling like a $30 or $40 product, like there's no way you're running profitable ads without getting more people to add things to their cart before they actually check out. So that business is interesting just because we run off the success of ClickFunnels as well, right? As ClickFunnels grows, we grow as well, because people are learning, like still even to this day and age, learning like, hey, I want to get a funnel, I want to start a business, I want to be a coach, I want to be a course creator, and everyone needs a funnel for that. And when you actually get into ClickFunnels, unless you're like really technical or know how to like design well, it's kind of hard. And so we offer that service as a done for you service, where we just ask you a couple pretty easy questions. We have you a client intake form, and then we do everything else from there. So we even write the copy for you.
That's fantastic. From my point of view, and it's a limited point of view. The sticking point is probably going to be in crafting the offer itself that fits, that makes sense. That's a winning offer. What's your involvement in that process, and is there a shortcut to that, or is there a service that one can employ?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like if you want to learn about offers, I think the best book out there right now is Alex Hormozi's book on, whatever Grand Slam offers, I think it's called, or $10 million offers or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's $100 million offers.
Yeah. That's the best book on how to create like a Grand Slam offer. But we definitely help people when they come on board. We're not going to create the whole offer for them. But generally what I'll do is I'll look at what they have right now, and then I'll like think, hey, like what's the best service that they offer right now that can be like their first to market, that'll actually get people through the door, like a lead magnet that they can use, or like something that they can sell on a phone call that can get them their first like customers. Mm-hmm. And then from there, they can upsell them into their other services. So like, for instance, if like you realize like a full stack, like let's say you guys were a full stack agency right now, but mm-hmm. you were really good at email and SMS, we would start with email and SMS as like your phone call funnel. And then once you prove yourself in that aspect, then you sell them the rest of the services. I think what a lot of people, like what their problem is, they try to sell everything. To everyone. Yeah. Instead of niching down. Where when you niche down and you target like one particular group and one particular offer, that's where you're going to win.
What does that look like for an e-commerce brand? Because I'm curious about that. And how do you select and say no to a bunch of different other things and just focus on one product, one funnel, and one avatar?
Generally, I mean, with that, e-commerce is a little different, right? Their avatar is kind of like their avatar. Like we would just probably go after product basis at that point. What's their best-selling product?
Right.
And then like what are the best-selling products that will complement that product as like the upsell checkout pages? Because I mean, e-commerce is just a little simpler of a game, right? It's like a commoditized product. Yeah. So like people are actually getting something. It's a physical, real thing. So you don't have to do as much selling on an e-commerce product as you would like a course or something that's like a mindset coach, things like that. Things that are like more metaphysical.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about your experience as a whole, from eBay to running an e-commerce brand as COO to running the mastermind right now and a couple of agencies as well. If you had to restart, let's go back to college, like just when you first started eBay, is there anything that you do differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah, start making content early on, right? I'm still pretty bad at this, right? One of the reasons I wanted to get on this podcast is so I can get some content out of it. Right. But like starting like to make content, personal brand is huge no matter what kind of business that you run right now. And it's only going to get bigger and bigger, and it's just free traffic for you down the line. So like really pushing out all your content on like email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere that you can, like everywhere that you can be known as an authority in your presence, you're just going to make more sales because of that. Even if it's an e-commerce brand, people will know, like, and trust you, and they'll buy from you over another brand that doesn't have a personal brand behind it. And obviously building an email list. I wish I'd done that kind of stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Because like I spent a long time just being like, hey, like I do e-commerce, I do eBay, I do Amazon FBA. I didn't do a lot of teaching ever or like coaching. And I wish I had in the past, right? Because one, it's a nice supplementary income. And two, you can just like kind of help people. And it's a really good experience. I think I still had like that limited mindset, like, oh, I don't want people to know about this kind of stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want like more people to be competition, but realistically, there's enough money for everyone to eat. So
that makes sense. Exactly. And one of the things I love about our community and the e-commerce space is that people who are competing directly with one another could sit down in a room and share like the most intimate secrets and ideas that typically when you go to any other industry, typically traditional industries, you wouldn't be able to do that. Because the industry is growing and there's enough for everybody to eat, and it's a fast moving space where you're winning on execution and not ideas.
Yep.
So I love that.
There's a great example of that with us when we started our agency. The first people I reached out to about client acquisition, asking how you were doing, it was you and Lewis. So
Exactly.
mhm.
Exactly, and then vice versa, right? One of the things that I've come to realize in the the very short amount of time that I've been in business, and we've only been around for about 4 or 5 years now. So, is that if you're starting out and you're thinking about choosing an industry to be in, if you have an option around choosing the industry that you want to build a career around, pick the one that's growing the fastest, because that's where typically people are the most open to sharing. You're typically going to learn the fastest. You're typically going to face a little bit less obstacles than you would that are out of your control. So that's one of the things that I've realized, that I've made a good decision at the start of my career, picking e-commerce over anything else that I've done. Maybe not consciously, but still good decision overall. Has there been decisions that you've made, Andrew, along your career that you felt has been pivotal in who you are today and the success that you have?
Absolutely. And I'll like pinpoint it to basically like one thing, and one thing I wish we had done sooner and I had done sooner with my own personal brands before, is joining masterminds. I built my whole entire network basically off of War Room, and then joined a few other masterminds after that. But because of like joining War Room in like 2018, I was able to like, that's like really where we blew up, right? One, you see what's possible, because like you meet people and like they're, just people, normal people, right? Like people you might have put on a pedestal at one point, like, oh, they're running this crazy brand, right? How did they making so much money? And then being like, well, that's just like a normal person, and they're willing to get on the phone with me and help me. So I wish we had done that sooner, to be honest. Like the first time that you can get the money to invest in a mastermind, just do it, because you're going to exponentially make more money than that just for the connections that you make. Just make sure that you're talking to people, like you're not just on an island when you go to the things. Make friends with people, and you're going to be able to grow like crazy because of that.
And it's way more fun.
Yeah,
it's way more fun. It can be really boring. One of the reasons I decided not to pursue eBay, interestingly, is because I didn't have a community, first and foremost, but also I was kind of behind the computer all the time, and just clicking and typing and just, it was so boring. It was so it's so mundane, and I couldn't connect with anybody in the space that was doing the same things that I was doing, and the struggles that I was facing. And that's also a big reason why I love this podcast. Like the conversations I've been able to have, going through the struggles and successes that other people have gone through, I get to learn from them, and I get to cut short my journey and skip steps that other people may have taken. So I love that. For people listening interested in kind of learning a little bit more about PowerHouse Mastermind, it's to see if they qualify and if they're a good fit. Where should they go to, and what are good next steps?
Yeah, so our landing page right now is just going to be eComPowerhouse.com. That's where you can actually check it out, apply for a call with someone. One of our salespeople will kind of talk about it. Basically, like, just the only requirement right now is that you're doing at least 7 figures a year with your business. Yep. And then we also offer monthly plans as well. So like if you just like want to sign up for like a minimum of 3 months and check it out, you can actually do that as well. So like you don't have to make the full investment. You can actually check out one event, go to one event, and then see if it's for you. In most cases, everyone signs up just because it's a great crowd. You learn a lot, and it's just super fun. When I was still actually in e-commerce, like in the actually trenches, still working on our brand before I left, I was I got rid of all my other masterminds, and I was only in PowerHouse. So, and funny enough, I just became friends with them like over time, and then like now I'm working with them.
That's fantastic. I love that. So you were a participant and you're a member before you became a part of the business. So that's a way stronger testimonial than anything else. What's the cost of being a part of the mastermind like?
Yeah. So for the year, it's $25,000, and if you want to sign up for a monthly, it's $27.50 a month.
Perfect. And for people listening, if you budgeted that number, think about how much more you could be making from people who are way ahead of you, just a couple steps ahead of you, or even people who are just right next to you. One of the things that I've kind of realized is that with Mastermind, you're typically looking for just one or two things that you can implement out of every session that you attend, every event that you attend. And that can unlock a whole new world of difference in your business that you otherwise wouldn't be able to access without that opportunity. It's not about acquiring the most amount of content and insights that you can. It's about understanding the right things to do. And that makes all the difference.
Yeah,
would you agree?
Yeah, you'll get shiny object syndrome. People are most successful at masterminds if they're coming to like learn a tactic or a skill, is the ones that like pick that one thing, and as soon as they get done with the mastermind, they immediately start implementing it. So, and then the other, just like the big thing, I was never that type of mastermind person. I used to go just to network specifically. Like I don't, even if I go to an event and stuff like that, I don't even sit through the speakers most of the time anymore. I just like go to meet people. Yeah. And you want to find either the person who's been through what you've been through and can help you with what you need to be helped with, or the expert in something that you're looking for that you can just hire to do what you want to do. Yeah. Because it's just so much faster to like pay someone than to try and like learn everything and do it yourself. That person spent years and years and years doing what they do. And for you to like think that like, oh, because I went to one event, I'm going to like be able to like beat them in most cases, right? It's crazy. That's why I just pick like the person. I'm like, hey, I want to work with you. And that gives you access to those type of people. That's the great thing about it. People that you normally would not have access to, you get access to just because either they're speakers or they're actual members.
Fantastic. And one of the things I've kind of realized is that with people that are really successful, typically most of the time they're not doing anything super innovative, super crazy. But what they do have is a different set of understanding and mindset around the problems that you might be facing. And they're doing the basics really, really well. And
they're usually good at one thing, like one thing they're really, really good at. They're a killer at that one thing. And they're usually pretty bad at everything else. But they've filled those holes with people or like outsourced agencies and things like that.
And yeah, one of this reminds me of what I've heard from one of Alex Hormozy's YouTube videos. Go check out. Shout out to Alex Hormozy and his YouTube channel. He's got some killer content, really, really good content that he's been putting out for free. And I personally find it super helpful. And one of the things that stuck with me was that to get to the next level, you're not looking at different things to do. You're looking at doing the same things, but better and more. And that was a big mindset shift for me, because I've always been on the hunt for, all right, what are these people that are way more successful than me doing that I'm not doing? And more often than not, the answer is there's nothing different that they're doing that I'm not doing. They're just doing it way better than I am, and more of it.
And longer, probably.
And longer.
Cases, right?
Way more reps.
Like overnight success. There's like people you hear about, they've been doing it for 5 to 10 years, the same thing, right?
Exactly.
And instead of giving up and jumping to the next like cool thing, they sat and just did the same thing. Like Andy Frizzell, a great example, right? He has a huge personal brand. I remember the first time I ever like listened to him on podcast, I think it was 2016 or something. They had this little crappy warehouse. Like he was doing well, but like nothing to like what they're doing now. Now they have this like massive building with like, they have cars that like people would dream of owning just as decorations inside of it. Like it's, and he's a huge personal brand, right? He's leveraged that into like having his own masterminds and things like that. But he just did the same thing for like 15 years. He started out like having stores, like just regular supplement stores, and he just ate shit. You know, you just have to be willing to eat shit if you're starting out for a while. Ty always, like Lopez had a good saying about that, like, how long ever you think it's going to take, it's going to take 2 more years probably.
That sucks to hear, but it's what a lot of people need to hear, including myself.
Yeah. So I mean, we're all there, right? Like no matter where you are at in life, you always want more. So like I always feel like I'm like 2 years away from that 2 years, right? But I just have to remember like, hey, like just keep doing the same thing and we're just gonna keep getting more and more successful.
Andrew, you start really, really long ago, really young, and having done what you've done, and having all the success that you've had, obviously there are people that are way more successful than both of us are combined and have done way more, have made way more money. But if you look at the people that have not done that and people who are a couple steps behind of us, we're doing well. Mm-hmm. What keeps you going versus just settling down and saying, I've had enough and great, I've done enough, I have enough money and I'm just gonna retire and relax and not do anything anymore?
So like I've always had this thing, like I'm pretty competitive, right? So I've always had a saying that I just enjoy winning, right? I never really cared what kind of business I was in or like what I was doing, if I was doing well and I was winning at that business. And so like that's kind of like what drives me, is I just always want to constantly be improving and doing better. I think I'd probably just lose my mind if I wasn't doing anything. Like even like, all of like, like the really wealthy people that we know, they're still playing in the game of business. They're just playing chess instead of checkers at this point. Whereas like we might still be like playing more on like the tactical side and like the building of the businesses. They're buying businesses and just moving pieces around and creating like bigger businesses out of it. So they're not doing a lot of the work, but they're doing so much of the thinking. Whereas I feel like what kind of where we are at in our careers, we're like somewhere in between still. Like we're still doing the work and we're doing some of the thinking as well.
Exactly.
So I don't think people like us ever stop, right? I know my grandfather's still 89 and he's still working. So
89.
I don't think that I'll ever end up quitting, probably. I don't think retirement's like a real word. I think that's just like if you work a 9 to 5 and you've hated it your whole life, you end up retiring and then you just get super bored. Like my mom retired and now she wants to kind of like work again and she volunteers at the park service just because she's bored.
Yeah. 100%. I can relate to that. And I think this experience, kind of what I'm taking from this conversation is that, and I believe that a lot of people listening are probably going to feel the same way, is that you're probably never going to stop. So whatever I'm feeling right now and the pains and the struggles that I'm going through, it's okay. It's going to stay. It's going to be there. And at the end of the day, looking at the people who have made it till a very, very mature and later stage in life, they would have chosen to go through the struggles than to not go through the struggles anyway. So whatever I'm feeling right now through the pains and the struggles, they're justified and they're worth it. That's what I'm getting out of it. And it's going to be there regardless of what stage, and the problems are never going to go away, but the abilities are going to change. Like the skills that I have would evolve and equip myself a little bit better to deal with the challenges that come.
Yeah. And imagine people just start paying you for your time, right? Maybe someone like Alex or like Ty Lopez or like Roland Frazier gets paid $25,000 for a half day, That's like the goal, right? To start getting like your time is so valuable that it sells for like an exorbitant amount of money.
Precisely. And even then, they probably wouldn't want to take your money.
Yeah.
Because they have a choice.
It really just comes down to like without pain, like I think life would just be kind of boring. Like you constantly, like if you're stagnant and like things are easy for you, obviously like something's wrong. And especially in business, like you're either going up or you're going down. And if like you're at that point where like you feel like stuff's easy and like you're kind of just like coasting, it's probably a good time to sell that business because you're probably not passionate about it and passionate about growing it anymore.
That makes sense. No. For people listening, Andrew, what's your number one advice that you wish more people would know of?
It's a great question, right? There's so many ways that you could put that, but I would say like don't compare yourself to other people, right? Because like I think I spent a lot of my 20s doing that. Like, oh, this person's doing this person's doing that. Like, why am I not there yet? and like every journey is just your journey. You're going to get there eventually, right? And like maybe not everyone's like deemed to be a deca millionaire or something like that, but a few $1,000,000 can really change your life and can like really make a big difference like on you and your family. So like stop comparing yourself to others and just focus on like what makes you happy and like how that you can create the most impact for the people around you and like your community. Like that's kind of like what I live by, right? I never want to be a billionaire, anything like that, but I do want to impact the people that are closest to me.
It's great advice. Great advice for me as well. I think I'm 100% guilty of doing that, the whole comparing thing. I think that's what keeps me on my toes, but it's also unhealthy and it's really not productive to do that. It's not meaningful at all.
I mean, we go to like every mastermind, right? And we like look at like like the speaker or something like like. And funny, I've spoken on stages too, so it's like people probably have looked at me that way too. But it's like when we look at someone like Nick Shackelford, like, oh, look how much their agency's doing, or like Tommy Patterson and stuff like that. But like they've been playing the game a little bit longer, playing the game a little bit differently. And it's just like, don't take for granted, like learn from what they're doing, but like don't compare yourself to them, right? Because like you don't know the circumstances, and like a lot of times you don't even know what their net is. That's a big thing in this world, right? Especially in e-commerce. Like, oh, we do $100 million a year. Oh yeah, but you net 1 million, so big whoop, right? Like that happens all the time in this space, right? Like these even like huge internet marketers, like course creators and people like that, people you would think are like insanely wealthy. Like if you actually look at their net, it's kind of like it's kind of pitiful. Yeah. So like it's all smoke and mirrors in the marketing game. It's pretty much smoke and mirrors in this e-commerce game too. So like just focus on what makes you happy and just keep growing every day.
That's fantastic advice. Andrew, what's the best way for people to connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, so Andrew at ecompowerhouse.com is my email. And then I actually don't mind giving out my personal cell phone number to people. So it's 702-751-2366 if anyone wants to shoot me a text and just ask me any questions.
Crazy. I love that. Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. I've had a lot of fun. And if people are listening and interested in learning a little bit more about PowerHouse Mastermind and to check out if you qualify or not, go to ecompowerhouse.com. That's ecompowerhouse.com and text Andrew. Go have a conversation with him.
Appreciate you, Josh.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the E-commerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.